This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze, your journey through life. And what we do on this program is I invite guests to share their stories, because typically when we hear somebody else's story, we might initially say, oh, no, that would never happen to me. Oh, I don't understand that. But then there's something that they say, and it's like, wow, that resonates with me. Let me go back and listen again. Let me try to understand. My guest today I found on podmatch.com, which I always like to acknowledge, because I would not have met Shant, I don't think, any other way. And so I'm hoping that all of you now will get to know who he is. He's an author, he's a producer, he's an entrepreneur, and he's still, in my words, a young kid. And I can say that, Shant, because I'm in my 70s. So even my boys are older than you are. But as I've read your bio, I realized that you've been through a lot, and your journey probably has something that all of us can learn from. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to say, tell us your story.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm gonna start off by kind of talking about how I started writing the book, and this all started when I was in high school, and it took me 6 to 7 years to finish the book 100%. So it took me a while because I felt like I was only like 16, 17 years old at the time when I started writing the book, so I didn't have enough experience in life. And I didn't really know how to feel about letting out all my emotions and my feelings and kind of my closed door that people don't see in a book where everyone will read it and, the whole world will know about it. So it took me a while not just to write the book, to also accept that I'm going to make that decision to go for it. But it was also like I was thinking to myself, I'm like, why do I want to go for it? Like, why? What makes me want to write the book? Is it because I want purpose? Is it because I want to prove myself something? And I got to a conclusion once it was coming up to the end of writing the book that I knew that there were other people in the world that have a closed door behind them and they don't want everyone else to know what's going on. And it's simply to raise awareness and so everyone can look after one another. It's not about educating or knowledge on a genetic disease or an invisible disease. It's simply that every single person has a closed door and no one knows everyone's side of the story. So I released the book. It's right at the brinks, and right away I was like, oh no, like I was worried that people are gonna see it, what's gonna happen, what kind of feedback was I gonna get? Did I not edit it well? Like what was gonna happen? And I just went right for it. I was like, you know what? I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what? I really want to one day be on my deathbed and just say, at least I did it. At least I tried something. At least I was able to prove myself something. As a child going through this genetic disease, I never felt like I could do anything. I never felt like I could be able to do most of the things I'm doing now. So I'm really at a point where I'm like, I really want to keep proving myself wrong on that point. And after that book got released, I was getting countless amounts of emails and calls from people that were going through their own battles, people that were fighting their own, like, mindsets about how they were going about life. And I really realized that, you know, a lot of the people, including myself, felt like we were the only ones going through a problem. We were the only ones going through something in life. And it wasn't the problem that was the biggest weight on us. It was really feeling like you were alone during those times. So I was like, that's my mission. That's my mission with the book. It's to make people kind of see a different side of life, kind of see that there's always light and darkness, and that all these challenges are meant to be there in our life to build us into stronger people. And without these challenges, all the accomplishments in the world wouldn't feel like anything. And without challenges, that'd be the real depression that's in front of us. And the more I'm meeting the people around the world and what problems they're going through, I really feel like there's a message that still needs to go out there, and that's where it got into the right people's hands, and that was the movie directors.
You know, it's interesting because we haven't even touched on the disease, so to speak.
Hmm.
But as much as there's a reason to, there's also a reason not to, because we all have some sort of disease or thing that is going on in our lives. And as I'm hearing you speak, you are reminding me of my youngest son, um, who who's on the autism spectrum. And we didn't know it for the first 6 years. He was just a normal kid. And went to school one day. They noticed something. They told us to go get diagnosed. We got diagnosed. He now had a label. And people didn't understand in the 90s really what autism was. And
Yeah.
so we fought it. Not only did he have to fight it, but his dad and I and everybody else around him. And so we became very vocal. Now, sometimes when you're vocal, people don't like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to know if you're doing something. I don't know, want to know why you're doing it. If you're thinking a certain way, I don't want to know. But what was it at 16 that made you say, I got to get this out?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there something particular that happened that made you decide, okay, I'm going to start putting this on paper?
Yeah, so it all started because it was like my junior or sophomore year of high school, and there was this project that we did that was a memoir project, and everyone had to write their own memoirs about something that they went through in life, an experience, like something traumatic, just something about the personality of who they are. And as I was just, starting the project, I kept writing about it. I was like, what's something that can, I wasn't the best student, if I'm being honest. So I was like, I need to get an A on this project. Like, what's something that I can get the teacher to say, oh, wow, I had no idea. And I was like, oh, I can like talk about my FMF. I was a little bit more mature now. I was a little bit more like okay with knowing that I have this genetic disease. So I was like, you know what? Let's give this a shot. He's the only person that's gonna be reading this anyway. Like I was like, it's not gonna go out anywhere. So I started writing it and then I started falling in love with it. I really did. It was supposed to be like a 5 to 10 page project. I went on to like 20, 30 pages. And I kind of during the time felt like that was a bit of a escape. It was a bit of like a way to kind of like acknowledge like who I am without being in the situation of me during the attacks of my genetic disease.
Right.
And that is when I fell in love with kind of writing. I started writing different things. Like I wanted to write more books, and then that was like the brinks of like I was like, wow, I can really make a change, not in the world from just words, but to myself. Like it really felt like it was a big weight to just get it all out there. And that was right away. That was just something that I knew that after that project, I want to keep going on with it.
And I love that you say that yes, your words might help other people, but
Mhm.
your words are helping you because you're identifying that, okay, I'm not just about this disease. I'm about so much more. But if I come out and start talking about it, I can start recognizing who I truly am. My son went through something very similar when he was in high school. He decided that he was tired of being bullied. He was tired of people not wanting to believe him. And so he became a public speaker. And at
Awesome.
first, his friends, or who he thought were his friends, um, made fun of him for it. Oh, who do you think you are? Why should you speak about it? He said, I'm just talking about my life. And if my life connects with you, great. And if it doesn't, well, that's okay too. We're all
Hmm.
different. And as he grew up and as he matured and as he's now out in business, people come to him and talk to him and say, thank you. Thank you for, telling me what your struggles were because I've been through that same thing.
Hmm.
And they may not even have the same condition. It can be totally something different, but we've all experienced certain things. So kudos to your teacher, first of all, for giving you that assignment. Um, how did your parents feel that now you're writing about yourself and a condition that maybe in some families, people would want to hush hush. We're not going to really talk about these things.
Oh, they were shocked at first. Like they were like, my son wrote a book. Like they were like, it was more of like a shock when it like came out that I want to like write a book about it. But they loved it. My family, I'm very grateful with like the family I have. They're very much like, they're business owners, and like they've built other businesses and stuff. And I've kind of like looked onto them, and I saw the accomplishments. And I also want to follow in the footsteps. But I was kind of like, what can I do that's a little bit more different than just going straight into starting a business or taking over the business, or what could I do? And I was like, you know what? Like I could try this out. I could release the book, and you know what? It's never a bad thing. It's something that's credible. It's something that can get, recognized, and I always felt like it was doing something right with my life. I really felt like if I live my life without helping one person, I feel like I didn't live my life to the fullest. And like even like when I release a book, like I've gotten like a lot of messages of people not liking the book and also liking the book, and it's gonna happen. And I really I even put in the book, I was like, if I can use my words to help just one person in the world, that's my victory in my life. My victory. That was my victory right there, and that's where I found a lot of purpose in my life, and that's also where I feel like, that's where I'm living my life to the fullest. It's simply by like, those simple words can just help someone every single day.
I grew up in an era where my mother used to use this phrase all the time: don't hang out your dirty laundry for your neighbors to see. Meaning you shouldn't tell the things that are going on inside of you that are hurting you, that, maybe they're secrets. And it wasn't until my son, I think was about 13, that I started blogging. And my mother read a couple of my blogs, and at first she was just, how can you? How can you talk about this? And I said, Mom, it's helping me because I'm facing the reality of what it's like to be a parent of somebody who has some special needs. And I said, and I'm realizing we all have special needs. Let's be honest, because we're all different. We all like
Yeah.
things differently. And it took her a long time to finally realize that not only was I helping myself, but it was helping her. She
Mm.
could understand some of the things that I would call her up and say, oh, I can't believe he had a meltdown over this. And she'd go, oh, just go give him a hug. And it was like, it's not just a hug, there's more to it. And when she finally started to understand, then I expanded more of what I was doing. So the same thing, like you're saying, you know, in the beginning, it was an assignment. From the assignment, it came, hey, this is helping me heal. And if I can reach one person, and I'm sure you've reached more than one. So, what is the name of the book? First of all, let's talk about that.
It's My Life, My Victory, Thriving with a Rare Genetic Disease. And right at the cover, right at the when you open the book, it says, if you're close to me, don't look at me differently after this book. Just to like, I was like, to clarify, if you start reading it.
So, you talk about this disease, FMF.
Mhm.
What is it for our listeners who have no idea, or they read your book and want to know more about that?
Yeah. So FMF stands for Familial Mediterranean Fever. And whenever I say I have these attacks, it's horrible what I went through more when I was a kid. So we got tested and everything, and it was actually we had some people come in that also had FMF, and they compared it to actually going through labor. And it goes on for 3 days straight, and it's something that I'm gonna have for the rest of my life. But thank God the older I get, it starts to get better. But I was diagnosed at 9 months old, so that was when I had my very first attack. And my mom said that was like a day that came from hell. We went to the hospital. They gave me blood work as like a 9 month old child, and it was, I was screaming and crying for hours and hours and hours. My mom said that was the first time that she like passed out, seeing her like baby like that. And they even flew in doctors from Turkey to study me because people had no idea what FMF was. That was the biggest problem is the doctors would be like, we have no idea what this is. And after countless amounts of DNA tests and everything, that is when we found it. And from what I know, my grandmother or my grandfather also had it, and it passes down generation. So my children wouldn't get it. My children's children would have FMF, and it's around the Mediterranean area that a lot of people are affected by this. It's a very,
Okay.
very rare disease, and they say a lot of people who are Armenian, Turkish, Jewish, anywhere around the Mediterranean area are the most affected by this.
And I had never heard about it before. And so I was, quite curious. So you say that over time, it's less invasive than it
Yeah.
is when you're younger. Um, and I can't imagine what your mother must have gone through because um, when my youngest was 4 or 5 weeks,
Mhm.
um, he started projectile vomiting. And I remember calling the doctor, and the doctor said to me, "Oh no, that's just spit up." And I said, "Oh no, this isn't." When he's sitting on my lap and it goes on the other side of the room, it's worse than that. And we took him into the emergency room and they ran tests on him for 2 days. And talk about a screaming baby. I can attest your mother, what she must have gone through. And what they found out in his case, he had a condition called pylorus stenosis. And what it is at the end of the intestine, there's this little thing that almost feels like an olive pit. And it doesn't let the food or the milk go through the intestines. And so that's why he was projectile vomiting. And it usually happens in your firstborn. He was my secondborn. So, of course, we weren't looking for that. And once we figured it out, he had surgery. He was absolutely fine. Um, but again, these are things that a lot of us don't even talk about. We don't
Mhm.
even know you know, what illnesses our kids have, how to get through it. Your mother had a story right there on her own, how she got through this. You then took your book and made a film. That's not an easy thing to do. How did you do that?
So right now we're actually in the works of getting the film already and everything. So a lot of people have asked, like, how's this happening? I was like, listen, it's luck. The book got into the right people's hands. They saw something in it, and they're like, we have to bring this onto the big screen. So think this book has made it to over 25 countries now. And it's been going more and more, it's getting to more and more hands, which was my goal. And then it was like one day, or it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. I got like an email and like a phone call from a producer and a director, and they were from different companies. And they were just like, "Hey, listen, we got your book. We'd love to, like, turn this into a movie." And I was like, "Am I getting scammed?" Like, I got like a bit worried, and I was like, "It's like 1 in the morning and everything." And then we met like through like Zoom, and then we started meeting. Like, they sent me over their work and then contracts and everything. I was like, "Wait, this is really like happening," and uh, from there, right now, where we are, we're like meeting actors, we're meeting different like distribution companies, and we're securing funding right now. And hopefully, within like the next 1 to 2 years, we're gonna officially release the feature film.
That is fantastic. So you've written a book, you're going to have a movie. What is your and you've used the word, I love it, purpose. Okay. Where do you want to go with this? Where do you see yourself 5 years, 10 years down the line?
5 years, 10 years down, like outside of my book, I have like different like businesses and stuff going on. So I hope to keep growing those. But outside of that, when it comes to like an actual purpose, I really, really hope and really believe that I can like just find some sort of like better medication or cure for not just this specific disease, but in some other way, like have work with other people with different diseases that don't have a cure or even a medication for it. I think today with where medication is, I think you take one thing to help one thing, and then it brings 10 other things along with it.
Right.
So I think with, today's technology, today's resources, I really believe that, that there's better ways to enhance the medications that we have. Um, I got accepted into Harvard's genetics program, so I hope to attend there, kind of educate myself more on the topic, and then after that, possibly work on like a whole company to start, building a medication for different diseases that people are going through. And the main goal is to just help people. The main goal is just, I can leave this earth knowing that I did something to like help one person. So that is ultimately just, if it's not 5 years, my 10 years, if not 10 years, my 15-year goal.
I love that. You know, one of the things I heard you say before, this is FM FMF is typically a Mediterranean disease. Um, and yet many of us think that if you're in the Mediterranean, you all know how to eat properly, you have the best health. Um, is there any evidence at all that there is something in the diet that
Mhm.
has causes genetic component?
Yes. So I will say, after meeting with like people that like specialize, like in this disease, diet is a very, very big part of, living a better life every single day. And one of the big things that they say to cut out is like fried food and things with like a lot of sugar. But the problem is that's everywhere here. Like everywhere, yeah. Like a lot of things here are unfortunate. Like even the doctors say it's processed. A lot of
Yep.
things here are processed, and say you were to get your vegetable, it's sprayed on. There's just a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a good diet. It doesn't mean that you can't have like a good everyday life, exercising and everything. But a lot of the main trigger why the attacks actually happen is through just like stress. Like if I get stressed out from, I run like a real estate business, and I run like a debt settlement service, so it can get a little bit on top of
Sure.
each other. Um, like with the book, like at first like one person who hated the book tried to like come after me. I'm like, come on, like
Yeah.
so it's a lot of different things that can cause the attacks of stress. But when it comes to diet, having a Mediterranean diet, for example, is very good for my genetic disease. But it's also something that I think just anyone who, even disease or not, if they're on that diet, they'll actually experience a lot less pain in their life.
It's interesting. This morning, I had a phone call with the doctor. Um, for the last 10 years, at least 10 years, my weight just kept adding up. And I'm not a big eater. And I was keeping a journal and I was exercising. And doctor after doctor said to me, well, cut out more, cut out more. It was like, how much can you cut out before you're not eating at all?
Mhm.
And so I finally found a doctor who said to me, it's not what you're eating. Your body doesn't know how to break down the food. And there are certain foods that you are eating that typically are good, but you are taking certain medications for other things that the food is no good for you.
Mhm.
And so we went through a study for almost 2 years. And now I'm finally on a plan. And the biggest thing I had to learn was you don't sit down and eat a full meal. At least for me, they're small meals and you eat certain things at certain times. Now, that's not going to work for everybody. I know that. Okay. Um, but you are right. There are things that we can find, but if we talk about them and we share it, somebody's going to say, hey, maybe that would work for me. Let me do some research. And that's what I love about what you're doing is that you care. It's like this may not help me personally, but what if it helps one other person?
Mhm.
It makes a difference. Now you're only 23 years old. You have a full plate in front of you, your book, the movie, your businesses. When do you have time for just you, just to have fun?
Oh, my fun is writing. I'll be honest. So that's really like this is my fun, if I'm being honest. I really felt like starting a business or building something, like I really felt like if I were to start something from scratch and then build it, that's like the same feeling I'd have than like going and having fun. Like it's just something that I've like since I was a kid, like I just always wanted to like kind of build things and do things. And now that I'm older, I felt like there was so many opportunities in front of me. And it all started during COVID time when everyone was shut down and I went crazy. That was I felt like I was so bored. So what I did was I was like, I want to try things out. I just want to go out and do something with my I was like, you know what, I can go be working with an attorney. Who cares? So I was like, I wanted to learn about real estate. So what I did was I emailed every agent in my area, and one of the brokers got back to me, and he ended up being one of my best friends after. He was like now one of the closest people in my life. Now, 5 years later, we still talk almost every single day, and he's taught me the most. And he actually helped me build my real estate business. So it's just something that I feel like that's my fun. It's just really building something and finding purpose through whatever I like started at and whatever I'm gonna finish at. And after I finish, I say, well, how can I enhance this? How can I keep going? And the me time is really just me on my computer writing, just writing something. So that's just how I go about really my day-to-day life. I feel like there's always something to accomplish, and that's what makes my day happen.
So for you to accomplish, you're learning
Hmm.
and you
Yeah.
haven't stopped learning. And that's something that I think is so important for our listeners to understand. Just because it's the end of high school and you graduate doesn't mean you stop learning. Whether you go on to college, whether you go to a job, whether you stay home and create something, you got to keep learning. And I want to say that to people of all ages, because 13 years ago, when I was sort of kicked out of corporate America, I thought, oh my God, who am I? What am I going to do? And it didn't take long for me to realize that I had the computer skills, I had the communication skills. Okay, what is it I really want to do? And what was I doing before that I can enhance? And that's how I started podcasting. That's how I started coaching. You're never too old. Okay. And we all measure success differently.
Hmm.
So, you know, for those of you listening, even if Shant only connected with one person in all this time, he's a success because he connected with one person. And you're a success because it's making you happy. And that is just incredible. So, how can my listeners find you, follow you, and make sure that when the movie comes out, they're first to go see it?
Yeah, so my website is just shantcimenian.com. That's Cimenian for the last name. I know it's very long. And my Instagram is just also Shant Cimenian. And we also have an Instagram page called My Life, My Victory Film. And we're always posting updates, posting about what countries we made it to. And that's where you'll see all the updates for the upcoming film.
Well, all that will be in the show notes. So, there's no excuse for anybody not to be able to find you. And where can they find your book?
So we are available on Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, and Google Play, and it's just My Life, My Victory, or you can just type in my name, Shant Cimenian, it should come up.
It is wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today. You are remarkable. When the movie is about to hit, we'll have to have you come back on so we can push it and promote it and make sure that we all get to see it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day now.
You
Bye
too.
bye.